So the next one, which we have is a very important person that we are calling on the stage, is Sri R. Arunachalam, who's the president of Institute of Actuaries of India. So can we have Sri Arunachalam? Yes. So I'll just introduce him, and then we can give him the mic. He comes with an extensive industry experience spanning over 30 years and a strong regulatory and professional connect. He brings a wealth of expertise to the field, holding a BSc in mathematics and being a fellow member of Institute of Actuaries of India, Insurance Institute of India, and Institute of Cost and Management Accountants of India. His journey has encompassed roles in corporate settings, life insurance, general insurance, and advisory, pensions and employee benefits. He has served on various committees and advisory boards, including those established by the IAI and the Institute of Actuaries of India. His multifaceted experience covers areas such as marketing, finance, underwriting, and more. Currently, he's honored to serve as the president of the Institute of Actuaries of India. So, sir, would you just kind of address the audience? Thank you.
Good afternoon, all. Post-lunch session. It's a second session post-lunch. I hope it's all right. Thank you, InsurTech Association, for inviting me, for inviting the Institute of Actuaries of India and our working party, joint working party. It's a privilege and pleasure to be here, to be among you. I was wondering when Sumit and Prerek called me to address what an actuary is going to do in an InsurTech conference. But insurance itself is more to do with data, right? And we do a lot of work on the data side. So where did it start? When did an actuary is more to do with InsurTech connect? Where did it start first? So when I started analyzing that, I found that it dated back to the good old Babbage himself, right? He was an appointed actuary for an insurance company when he designed the difference engine, right? So we do work with a lot of data calculations, right? What do we do with data? We work with the data to rearrange it, format it, look at patterns, look at what kind of information that we could elicit that we can use for the future. That's what we look at from the data. That's our work. We use a lot of mathematical concepts in that, probability, statistics, designs, graph, many areas that we apply on the data to arrive at what we can decipher from the data for the future. Not just that, we also use finance, in a sense, the financial side of it. As we know, business is more about finance, and if I look at insurance, traditionally is about compensating your loss or for the risk that you have had in a monetary way. At least that's what we look at, and hence finance comes in play, and we do a lot of financial mathematics. So in a sense, that we are connected, and it all started quite long ago, right? So coming back to our journey within the insurance space, I'm not getting into the other tech space. It started with fintech and then to InsurTech. If I look at what we do within the insurance space as actuaries, we work across various value chains, starting from the customer angle, be it the regulatory angle, it could be the distribution angle, or it could be even the technology side of it. We look at all these areas, It could be an acquisition, it could be you know, a kind of a software or a data model connected with software that could be used to sell an insurance. It could start from there to even devise how a claims can be paid. Eventually, if you miss a flight, it can be settled without you even lodging a claim, right? That's what is happening elsewhere. So there's quite a lot of areas that work with data, work with information, and we are connected. We are connected in a way because we arrive at the premium that's the right premium that can be charged for the insurance. So to do that, we look at the data. We look at the past history of how the claims have come. So the entire value chain comes into play, how it is sold, who have bought, what kind of product it is, whether it is sold at the right price, what kind of underwriting that we have done, what kind of claim practices that we have, or the policy issuance or policy servicing practices that we have. The entire value chain comes into play in the data in some way or the other. It could even be the geography. So if I look at the InsurTech space, which is emerging, it is mostly in this arena, be it on the customer side, customer acquisition side, or in the distribution side, or else on the claim side, right? So we, as actuaries, felt that we should continue to involve ourselves in the technology and the contemporary fields that are emerging, and we are doing that. And I do have a few of my council members and actuaries attending this conference, very senior people who have worked on mortality tables, who have worked on various data models. One of the initiatives that we have done along with the India InsurTech Association is about creating a joint working party. The joint working party is a joint initiative between the Institute of Actuaries of India and the India InsurTech Association. And one of my fellow actuary, who's also part of the India InsurTech Association in some way, Sumit, is chairing the session, and I'm sure he would take you through what they have done. They have recently delivered an excellent white paper on alternative data sources. I'm sure you would come to know about that in detail from Sumit. So that's what we are doing with the India InsurTech Association. So with that, I thought I'll just briefly say about the institute, the connect, and what we have done on the joint working party. I would request Sumit to have a few more details on the working party and also the paper that they have created. Thank you so much.
So with that, I would like to invite Sumit Ramani, who is also an executive committee member at the India InsurTech Association. So by education, he's an engineer, but he turned a life actuary with 15 years of experience in the insurance and reinsurance industry, and has worked with stakeholder clients across the globe, including Americas, Europe, Australia, and Asia. He wears two hats of an InsurTech consultant and also an InsurTech co-founder. Over the last 5 years, he's helped dozens of InsurTechs across the globe and recently co-founded protectmewell.com, an API-first comprehensive financial needs analyzer. He's a fellow member of the Indian and the UK Actuarial Societies. He's the Secretary Advisory Group of Healthcare Insurance of the Institute of Actuaries of India, and is an executive committee member of the Indian InsurTech Association, as I just mentioned. He drives the actuarial community and alternative data sources initiatives of the India InsurTech Association. And he will now talk more about the working groups that the IAA has created. Sumit, it's all yours.
Thank you, Nilanjan. In next 10 minutes, I'll talk about three things. One is working party initiative at India InsurTech Association. Detail more into alternative data sources working party, for which we have released exposure draft recently. And also set some context for the workshop that we have in next half an hour, which is a clever amalgamation of two working parties themes that we have, that is parametric insurance and also alternative data sources. So with that background, let me first start filling in for Pallav, who heads Working Party Initiative at India InsurTech Association. So at India InsurTech Association, the way we devise our working groups or the way we work is we want to present ourselves or position ourselves as thought leaders on topics which are fairly new, emerging, and on the areas where standards and practices are yet to be evolved, right? So we as thought leaders intend to come up with white papers, wherein it becomes a standard, industry standard for them to start building on top of it. And when we do it, the intention is to get consent of every stakeholder, because the intention of working these white papers is not to have it as an academic paper sitting somewhere in Google Scholar, but something that is actually utilized, right? So the way we do it is we get everyone on board and come up with actionable standards and practices that could be utilized by insurance industry. So how do you function as working groups? The way we function is we first identify a chair. If you look at the chair, he or she doesn't seem to be very happy, right? And anyone who has volunteered for any working parties would know why. But I would strongly recommend everyone who is interested to contribute either as chair or members of working party, because I think this is the best way when you adjust for risk, adjust for the upside that you have, that you could get as an individual, as an expert in this field. And the third thing that we do is then also work very closely with the executing consulting partner, because if you think of how a working party would work, experts would come together, they would have, of course, their day job commitments, and if they're experts, they're reasonably very busy as well, right? So if you think of an analogy here, experts would, if you're designing a car, someone would design a tire, someone would design an engine, someone would design probably the backlights and stuff. But someone like an executing consulting partner who has understanding and skills across every part of the chain, who could stitch everything together and present in a way that it actually becomes meaningful for the wider audience, right? So for example, in case of alternative data sources working party, we had PwC working with us, and hence we could eventually come up with a paper which is now a lot more useful and readable and presentable for everyone. And the methodology is we spend a lot of time research, talking to people, get together in terms of coming to meeting and eventually coming with standards and practices. So what are working parties that we have right now? The first one is alternative data sources, and we'll delve into details of it in a bit. The second one is on cyber risk, cyber security, and the third one is on AI and insurance. The fourth is tech and insurance. The fifth, parametric insurance and fixed benefits products. Sixth is on missing middle on the health insurance side, and how do we use tech there. And the last one is on how do we use tech to increase brand awareness in insurance. So if you look at all these 7 working parties, you will see there is a common theme. All of them have an element of data, all of them have an element of technology, and of course all of them are focused on insurance. The intention for all of them is to eventually come up with white paper which would have standards and practices that can be used by entire insurance industry. A bit of update on some of the working parties here. On alternative data sources, we just released exposure draft of the working paper. We released it on 22nd September 2023, which is our way of saying yesterday. And what are the next steps now, right? So the next step is for everyone in the industry to contribute to it, to review it, give us feedback, and we would eventually roll out a working paper which incorporates the feedback and then it's available for everyone. I think it's now a good idea to switch in the role of Sumit, who also chairs working party, and talk about what is alternative data sources is, right? So alternative data source is something that we all use in some form or shape in our daily lives, but maybe we just do not call it, right? So maybe a more relatable example is this famous joke wherein a Bangalore flat owner said he would only rent out his flat to people who are members of CRED, right? Which is his way of saying that these guys are the credible guys and I'm only going to give my flats to them on rent. So that's one very crude form of alternative data source. The other, which we just witnessed as in the form of account aggregator, there are going to be huge data source of alternative data for us. There is an InsurTech wherein you could go to the booth, get your photo clicked, and they'll talk about they'll mention your SpO2, blood pressure, whether you, how close, what is your HbA1c level and stuff. Right? So that's another source of alternative data source. There are tech companies wherein they analyze your how you speak, and they can actually say whether you smoke or not, right? There are also now satellite imagery is being used to estimate the loss because of flood, for example. So these all become ways of alternative data sources. And then you would ask, why do it, right? And insurance is probably doing fine, growing year on year at certain rates, so why even take that trouble? So at this point in time, it's also important to kind of understand that whatever insurance companies ask you as part of, let's say, issuing a policy is traditional data. Everything they do not ask and still utilize is an alternative data, or hope to utilize is an alternative data. And while insurance is where it is in terms of technology, technology chain, I think the world around us as customers is evolving. You can book a cab by clicking a button. You can get anything that you want to eat by again clicking a button. You could order groceries, clicking a button, book a flight, clicking a button. But in insurance, you pay premium, you wait for 30 days to issue a policy, right? It doesn't kind of work. So everything, the primary reason of using alternative data source is to smoothen the customer journey, either on the buying side or on the claim side, or even utilizing it for developing a product. Right? And all this you are doing so that customer journey is smoothened, but at the same time you do not compromise on risk management. You still have enough ways and means of collecting data which you would have otherwise asked directly, either through proposal form or through medical test. But now you are collecting these information from other sources. It might require consent. It might, you might already have access to it, and you will probably require free to use it, right? And this is where some challenges come in. So if you have a data which is otherwise available, how do you know that this data is usable? How do you know that it is legal to use that data? How do you know that whether this data is ethically right for you to use data, right? So essentially, every time you're trying to use an alternative data source, these questions would come up. And this is where the white paper comes in quite handy, wherein we have come up with a framework to evaluate an alternative data source for you to be able to say that, okay, I have ticked 25, 30, 50 boxes, and I'm reasonably comfortable that this is the kind of data I'm happy to start exploring. So it cuts down your time of trying to think whether this data source is useful or not to maybe from few months to few days. The other thing that alternative data sources white paper does is it has a repository of alternative data sources that exist in India. And then it also has use cases for you to be able to think of new things. So if you think, just to summarize, we have repository, we have use cases, and Prasad, during the workshop that happens in about 20 minutes from now, would talk about some of the use cases of how they are using alternative data sources in insurance setting. And then there is a framework, and to help us understand the framework, we have about 55 minutes workshop wherein all of us come together, actually design a parametric insurance product wherein alternative data sources is used in some part of the value chain. So if you see, we have cleverly combined two themes of working party, that is parametric insurance products and alternative data sources. And I think it's a good idea to spend maybe a couple of minutes to understand what parametric insurance is, right? So parametric insurance, simplistically put, in this type of product, the claims get triggered once a parameter is hit, right? Simplest example is flight delay. If a flight gets delayed by 2 hours, your claims is processed. You don't even have to apply for a claim. If there is an earthquake above 8 on the Richter scale, you get a fixed amount paid out in your bank account without even asking for it. If you're a pregnant lady and your HbA1c level crosses 7, you're diagnosed as with gestational diabetes, you get a payout. So essentially, all parametric insurance products would have this arrangement. If a parameter is hit, the claims pay out. In the workshop, just to also clarify one more time, we design a parametric insurance product and use alternative data source in any part of the value chain, which could be on the distribution, on the marketing, on the underwriting, or it could be claims, and it could also be in designing the product. Switching back to working group initiatives, the other working group initiative that we have is on cyber risk. We have identified the chair. Namita Rohra, and we are now identifying the members. And if you think that this is the area where you are an expert, would be willing to contribute and could dedicate about hour and a half in a week, you might want to reach out to Namita, Pallav, or Shobha, or Spurti. The other working party that we have is on AI in insurance, and Suguna is the chair for it. Again, if this is a topic where you're interested in, please feel free to reach out to the chair or Pallav or Spurti. The other two working parties that we have, we are still yet to identify chair, and if you think that chair is the role that you would want to take, please feel to reach out to Pallav. And the other two parties which we are yet to start any action, because the idea is to start one, deliver, then start focusing on other two and start delivering, right? So that's pretty much it that I have. Thank you very much.
I thank on behalf of the Institute of Actuaries of India, the efforts put by Sumit and also the InsurTech Association and also PwC for bringing out the white paper on alternative data sources. I'm sure there are many more to come. Thank you, Sumit.
Thank you.